Tell me about what's life like.
It's pretty much common knowledge.
Independent film companies often find it difficult to sustain or make a base of their own. A huge chunk of the box office is controlled by the major film studios, a group of 5 media conglomerates. From the earliest beginnings of film production, these companies have dominated the industry, an indication of which is that they alone control around 80 to 85% of the US box office revenue. Many of you will be familiar with the names of the Big Five, which are Universal Pictures, Paramount Pictures, Warner Brothers, Walt Disney Studios, and Sony Pictures. Amidst their dominance, A24 was founded in 2012. Today, A24 has developed its own dedicated fan base and established its position in the film industry, owing to its focus on producing and distributing films redefining popular conventions and genres. In 2023, A24 became the first independent studio to sweep Best Picture, Best Director, and all 4 acting categories in a single year at the 95th Academy Awards. Today, we'll explore 15 of their most underrated but must-watch films. So yeah, let's dive into the list. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin.
But I think one of the real ways I have gotten smarter is I don't think I'm that much smarter than other people.
Number 1. The End of the Tour. The End of the Tour was released in 2015. The film is based on David Lipsky's best-selling memoir, Although of Course You End Up Becoming Yourself, which narrates a 5-day road trip that Lipsky had with the writer David Foster Wallace. The film opens with us being introduced to a distressed Lipsky in 2008. The cause for his disturbance? The news of the suicide of David Foster Wallace. Wallace was not just a very famous writer for Lipsky. He'd shared some close moments with him 12 years back when he interviewed Wallace after the release of Wallace's critically acclaimed novel Infinite Jest. The film then moves to the past, when the book was just released. We see a skeptical Lipsky who's not swayed by the praises that Wallace's book was receiving. But after reading it, he's amazed, so much so that he presses his editor at Rolling Stone to send him on an interview of Wallace. This is where the bonding between the two authors gets forged. A bond that was both endearing and antagonizing at the same time. The interview often escalates into friction, as Lipsky delves into sensitive questions regarding Wallace's addiction, but unknowingly the two get closer, starting from the first day, when Wallace invites him to stay over at his guest house. Later on, Lipsky accompanies Wallace on a book tour of his, and gradually gets more acquainted with him over the brief period he stays with Wallace. The encounter becomes more than a mere interview, and an exploration of the beauty of human relations. The End of the Tour is often quoted as one of the best performances of Jason Segel, who donned the role of David Foster Wallace. As it was a limited theatrical release, it passed the notice of many who would have applauded it. Number 2. Love Lies Bleeding. Love Lies Bleeding is set in a 1989 New Mexican town, and it takes us to Lou's life. We're introduced to Lou as a withdrawn character. She's a gym manager and has a complicated relationship with her sister Beth, Beth's abusive husband JJ, and an uncomfortably flirtatious friend Daisy. The film gradually picks up the pace as elements of organized crime come into play when an FBI agent comes searching Lou for information on her estranged father, Lou Sr. It's shortly after their small visit that Lou stumbles upon Jackie, a bisexual bodybuilder. Lou offers Jackie steroids, which she accepts after her initial refusal. Later on, the usage of steroids by Jackie starts happening on an unprecedented level, and the subsequent changes in her body are surreal to watch. Before the film gets to that point, we see a romantic interest quickly build between Lou and Jackie. One thing leads to another, and soon they move in together. The movie progressively gets more tense as the abusiveness of JJ comes to the fore, so much so that Beth gets hospitalized due to extreme abuse from her husband. On the other side, Jackie's aggression starts getting out of hand due to her extreme steroid usage. To complicate things, Lou Sr. returns to Lou and Beth's life, vowing to protect Beth. What then unfolds is thrilling to watch. The film aesthetics remind one of 1980s westerns. The film is often described as a tribute to the classic of James M. Cain, Jim Thompson, David Lynch, and Coen brothers. The names mentioned above are an indicator of the surreal plane the film delves into, elevated by an impressive soundtrack. Watch it for a thrilling ride where you'll find it difficult to expect what's up next.
Get on your feet now, come on!
Number 3. It Comes at Night. It Comes at Night is a horror film where the human emotions of loss, grief, pain, fear, and mistrust replace the traditional horror tropes to terrify us. At the start of the film, it's established that a contagious disease has taken over Earth. A family comprising of the couple Paul, Sarah, and their teenage son Travis is trying to dodge it by secluding themselves deep in the woods in a home. Under this situation of survival, we see human bonds holding little meaning. This horrific reality is portrayed by the killing of Sarah's father, Bud, after he contracts the disease. The same night, when they burn Bud's body, an intruder breaks into the home. However, Paul manages to subdue him and places a bag over his head to confirm that he isn't carrying the disease. Soon we're introduced to the intruder, Will, and his motive behind breaking in. He did it in search of fresh water for his wife Kim and son Andrew. The family's encounter with Will sets off a chain of events which will result in Will's family offered sanctuary in their home by Paul and Sarah. The film makes it sure that we don't mistake Will's family being taken in to be a result of Paul's humanity, but only an attempt to enlarge the group so as to protect themselves. However, in such an atmosphere of paranoia and distrust, things were bound to get worse. The film progressively gets more tense and dark, not spoiling it for you here with more details. Critics and evaluators have opined that the film carried immense potential to garner more than what it earned at the box office. Anyway, with us living in a world that was struck by a global pandemic, the film will be more relatable and scarier than when it was released in 2017. Number 4. Locke. How often is a film with a single actor on screen made? And how often would it put us on the edge of our seats? The next movie on the list, titled Locke, is one such experience. The film doesn't take much time to establish the context and background of the protagonist, Ivan Locke, a construction foreman. He has a planned schedule for the day, as he must be present in Birmingham to supervise the largest non-nuclear, non-military concrete pour in European history. Back at home, his wife Katrina and sons Eddie and Sean wait for his arrival to watch a football match. It's in this background that Locke learns that Bethan, whom he had an illicit relationship, has gone into a premature labor. With only two choices left in front of him, either to manage his home and job responsibilities, or to be with Bethan, with whom he does not have any commitments or feelings with, he chooses the latter. It's here that we learn about Locke's own history of being abandoned by his own father as a child. Much of the story takes place over 36 calls he has with various characters, affecting his life and responsibilities. The film progressively gets claustrophobic and tense, as the only location we can see is the car that Locke drives. This brilliantly captures the loneliness of human beings, between the many relationships and human bonds they have. Tom Hardy delivers one of his career-defining performances. Well, the movie is being adapted into French by New and Connect, titled Crossway. Let's see if there will be more directors and actors who dare to take up the challenge to adapt it.
Come on.
Number 5. Zola. It's common to hear novels and other printed fiction getting adapted as films, but a Twitter thread? Not so much. Zola, which was released in 2021, is an adaptation of one such thread, one of which was tweeted in 2015 by Asia Zola King. The movie follows the story of Asia Zola King, a waitress and a part-time stripper in Detroit. Her encounter with an outgoing fellow stripper named Stefani leads to the incidents of the movie. Stefani convinces Zola to go on a road trip with her to Tampa, Florida, to a strip club. She claims that she knows others who have made huge money by performing there, and it's now that we are introduced to Stefani's mysterious roommate, X, and her foolish boyfriend, Derek. After arriving at the strip club, neither of them earn as much money as Stefani claimed. Gradually, X's identity starts getting revealed, and we realize that Zola was actually being trapped into sex work. X is revealed to be Stefani's pimp. On the other side, we see Derek's foolishness at play, as he tells a man he befriended, named Dion, about the real reason for their visit. The already dark tone of the story takes a violent turn, as Stefani gets kidnapped by Dion and his crew. The film reminded me of Pulp Fiction due to its style and pacing. The real Zola, who had posted the thread, had revealed that she had posted about the same incident twice before, but minus the pulpy elements, being ignored. The movie, being a black comedy, captures the numbness of the world by adapting the tweet as is. Number 6. Green Room. Green Room hit screens in 2015 without much noise or fanfare. Nevertheless, Jeremy Saulnier proved why he's a master of craft and pacing, who understands realistic violence and tension with his film. Moving to the story, Pat, Sam, Reese, and Tiger are members of a punk band. At the beginning of the film, Pat explains the reason their band, the Ain't Rights, don't have a social media present, for they consider that punk rock is something to be experienced in the moment rather than online. But by the end of the movie, I don't think Pat would have had the same opinion, when the band gets a show arranged through Daniel, Tad's cousin, in a neo-Nazi skinhead bar in Portland, the show being an opening for the Nazi metal band Cowcatcher. We realize the slow pace at the beginning to be deceiving. When Pat returns to the green room in search of Sam's phone, here he finds a dead body of a girl, Emily. She was stabbed to death by one of the members of the Cowcatcher, Worm. Pat's attempts to call the police fail, as the bar's employees confiscate the band members' phones and hold them captive in the green room. The character arc of the major characters and the violence that we see after this catches us off guard, each moment a spoiler in itself. The movie, amidst the brutal, bloody violence, acts in Saulnier's words as a tribute to punk culture that he grew up in. The undertones and textual references are indeed rewarding to discover amidst the blood splatter. Number 7. Come On, Come On. The writer and director of Come On, Come On, Mike Millis, delivers an emotional, magical mixture of real interviews and fictional drama. In the 2021 release Come On, Come On, Joaquin Phoenix plays the role of Johnny, a single middle-aged radio journalist. Johnny is shown to be working on a project involving interviewing children and teenagers about their lives and thoughts about the future. The primary plot starts when Johnny reaches Detroit for his work. Here he calls upon his sister Viv, with whom he had not had contact for almost a year after their mother's death. But they reconcile quickly, after which Viv asks him to look after her 8-year-old son Jesse. She tells Johnny about how Paul, struggling from bipolar disorder, needs her help to settle down. Johnny agrees and travels to Los Angeles to look after Jesse. They both quickly develop a bond. However, Johnny slowly finds it difficult to navigate his job responsibilities and Jesse, with whom he gradually grows closer. The film brings out Johnny's old memories and his relationships with his family and ex-lover. We're taken into a simple but sublime bonding that the uncle and nephew develop, culminating in a melancholic climax. The black and white shade the film is shot in is brilliant, as it removes any sort of visual distraction and helps in keeping us in the moment and with the characters. The ending of the film captures one of the recurring themes in Millis movies, where neither of the two characters will ever know everything about each other, which leaves the audience emotionally wrecked. Number 8. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. The film is based on Marcel the Shell shorts, a trilogy of 4-minute stop-motion animated mockumentaries released between 2010 and 2014. The film acts as both sequel and prequel to the shorts. The movie starts with the moving in of Dean, a documentary filmmaker, into an Airbnb after his marriage ends. To his surprise, he finds a talking 1-inch tall shell named Marcel, living in the apartment with his grandmother, Nana Connie, and Alan, his pet ball of lint. Marcel's lively nature amuses Dean, who starts filming his daily activities, which include supporting Nana Connie by gathering resources from the backyard. Meanwhile, we see the health of the wise Nana Connie gradually deteriorating. Marcel soon becomes an internet sensation after Dean uploads this video. It's here that the turning point in the movie comes, as Marcel laments about the loss of his family to Dean. He tells Dean how a fight between the previous owners, a couple, led to them getting separated. What follows is a quest to find the family, guided by Dean's live streaming. However, Marcel has to navigate between Nana Connie's fading health and his fame-induced growing crowd in their home. Kyoto Bros Production primarily did the stop-motion animation, better known for providing animation to the 1988 classic Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Even though the film had a live action where the stop-motion is placed, it was nominated for the category of Best Animation Film at the 95th Academy Awards. The movie is entertaining while being heartful at the same time. Number 9. Under the Skin. Under the Skin is a science fiction film released in 2013, written and directed by Jonathan Glazer. It's based on a 2000 novel of the same name written by Michelle Faber. The film begins with a motorcyclist placing an inert woman on the back of a van, where a naked woman wears her clothes. After buying clothes and makeup, the woman drives from place to place, picking up men. The movie starts becoming gory, as we see her seducing a man who follows her into a void in a building, only to get submerged in a liquid abyss. The film then follows more such incidents, where she either seduces or forces more men to the building, only to submerge them in the liquid. But her character gradually starts transforming, as she becomes more conscious and curious about her body. Later on, she seduces a man with facial tumors, but leaves him after examining herself in the mirror. After this incident, she attempts to escape from her earlier life, as the earlier motorcyclist, along with 3 more, pursue her. We see the woman starting to have an identity crisis, as she becomes more and more conscious about her human features. It's in the climax that we realize what the real reason for her identity crisis is. The majority of the cast had no previous acting experience, and the majority of their scenes were filmed using hidden cameras, and have since appeared in many Best of the Decade lists. The film is often described as a symbolism of extreme alienation, and leaves you with more questions than answers at the end. Number 10. Men. The title of the movie is an indicator of the major horror element in the British folk horror released in 2022. The film starts with Harper Marlowe retreating to Herefordshire village of Coston for a break after her husband James' suicide. The film then moves to flashbacks, where we see an emotionally abusive and manipulative James, which leads Harper to plan a divorce. The antagonism between the couple finally results in James falling downstairs to his death, graphically impaled by a fence, the incident being self-inflicted by him. Back to the present, upon her arrival at the house that she had rented, Harper is greeted by the cheerful but eccentric owner of the house. The countryside is shown to be picturesque, but at the same time carrying a mysterious aura. She encounters strange incidents at the place, which includes almost all men she encounters, horrifyingly resembling Joffrey and a stalking naked man. Toward the end, the film becomes more violent and graphic. The film has been analyzed for its gender themes. Amidst being seen as a critique of misogyny, it was criticized for the lack of subtlety and undermining of the dominant themes by the usage of sexist violent scenes toward the climax. The film is a thriller and has been applauded for the visuals, along with the stellar performance of the cast. However, it may fall short of expectations due to the incoherent narrative structure it follows. Number 11. The Farewell. The in-betweenness that a migrant community experiences in a foreign culture has been documented in many literary works and films. Lulu Wang's The Farewell is one such endeavor based on her own experiences. The film starts with Billy, an aspiring Chinese-American writer, receiving a rejection letter for a Guggenheim Fellowship. Adding to her sadness, she finds out from her parents, Hai Yan and Jian, the news about her grandmother Nai Nai's diagnosis of a terminal lung cancer. She shares a close relationship with Nai Nai and is crushed to hear the news, but her parents keep the diagnosis a secret from her grandmother. They plan to unite the family, maybe for the last time, on the pretext of Billy's cousin Hao Hao's marriage in Japan. Hai Yan and Jian fear that Billy may break the result of the diagnosis to her grandmother, and therefore ask her to remain in New York City. Nonetheless, she disobeys them and flies to Changchun, where they're staying and the marriage has been planned to happen. She assures her parents that she won't reveal the cancer diagnosis. What follows is an emotional get-together of family, captured through comedies. The get-together offers us insights about the distinctions between the cultural aspects of China and the West. The former's idea of family and relations being based upon collectivism, while the latter's purely focused on individualism. Wang has later spoken about the differences in the culture she shares with her family in China and with her classmates and colleagues in the US. The film was not an easy one to make, as Lulu Wang had to face various obstacles to obtain funding for her idea. The biggest obstacle she faced was the demands by financiers to include a prominent white character into the storyline. Number 12. Under the Silver Lake. Under the Silver Lake, released in 2018, is a neo-noir black comedy that follows a string of events that happens in the life of Sam. Sam is a 33-year-old guy living in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. He's introduced as an aimless and carefree middle-aged guy interested in conspiracy theories. He's so carefree that he's shown to be uninterested in even paying his overdue rent. A chain of events is set off in the span of 2 days, starting from a morning when he sees the news report of a disappearance of a billionaire Jefferson Severance. At the same time, he notices a topless lady feeding her birds, and notices a mysterious new neighbor, Sarah, who sees him noticing her. Both of them get high together as they begin to kiss. Sarah's two roommates interrupt them. He tells Sam to come back the next day, but he finds out the next morning that they have moved out overnight. He breaks into the apartment to find a strange symbol on the wall, but flees when a woman, Troy, comes to pick up a box. One thing leads to another, taking us on a down the rabbit hole ride. Wild, eccentric conspiracy theories come to life over the course of the film, taking us through different locations of Los Angeles, including Griffith Observatory and Janet Gaynor's grave. The film's reviews were widely polarized, with it either being a hit or a complete miss. Joshua Rothkopf of Time Out best states the nature of the film, defining it as either evaporating into nothingness or cohering into something you'll want to hug for being so wonderfully weird. The film garnered a cult following of its own, with many hardcore followers believing it to be carrying hidden clues, codes, and ciphers, which need to be discovered. Number 13. Mississippi Grind. Mississippi Grind follows Jerry, a gambling addict and a struggling real estate agent, who comes across a young gambler, Curtis, at a casino in Dubuque, Iowa. Their bond starts over a heavy drinking session, which starts with Curtis buying Jerry a drink. One thing leads to another, and we see Curtis feeding Jerry's gambling addiction. Over the course of the film, we get to know more about Jerry's past as we come across his ex, Dorothy, and his estranged daughter, Wendy. We also see the character development of Jerry, highlighted by his desire to do something nice for his daughter, after winning $500,000 in contradiction to what Curtis desires, to buy a white Cadillac. Ben Mendelsohn plays the role of Jerry, and is one of the most realistic characters he's played on screen. The movie is an entertainer, but slow-paced compared to other gambling dramas. If you're looking for a movie with a well-written screenplay, quirky characters, and camera angles playing a part in the narration, this is for you. The film captures perfectly the complications of life and the difficulty in finding one's true self by facing one's vulnerabilities first. Number 14. First Reformed. Paul Schrader, known for his classics like Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and American Gigolo, dons the role of writer-director in this 2017 psychological thriller. The film takes place in Albany County, New York, and follows the happenings around a First Reformed church community, focusing on the protagonist, Reverend Ernst Toller. The film's story starts when Mary Mensana, a pregnant parishioner of Toller's church, seeks counsel for her husband Michael, who's a radical environmentalist. Toller is told that Michael wants Mary to get an abortion, so as not to bring a child into a future uninhabitable world. This leads to a soul-to-soul conversation between Toller and Michael. Gradually, as the film progresses, Toller's attitude toward the environmentalism of Michael undergoes a change, even leading him to take radical steps sympathetic to the ideology. Later on, the introduction of Edward Balk, CEO of Balk Industries, to the storyline enlarges the fold of environmentalism and climate change the film addresses. The biblical elements of Savior and the binary of good and evil brought in through the characters should not be missed, which points to the naming of Mary and Michael as a conscious effort by Schrader. The film made it to the list of top films of 2018, released by both National Board of Review and American Film Institute. Ethan Hawke gives a stellar performance, winning the award for Best Actor at the 34th Independent Spirit Awards.
Nothing serious.
No, it is.
Like we're the stars of the human race.
Number 15. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Yorgos Lanthimos is known for being part of a postmodern film movement, Greek Weird Wave. He directed the psychological horror thriller The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which was released in 2017, using his characteristic absurdism. The title refers to the ancient Greek tragedy Iphigenia in Aulis by Euripides. The film opens with Stephen Murphy, a cardiothoracic surgeon, meeting a 16-year-old Martin Lang at dinner. We're made aware that Lang's father died a few years back, which forms an important premise for the film later on. Stephen takes Martin along with him to his home and introduces him to his wife, Anna, and their children, Kim and Bob. The same night, Martin invites Stephen to his house for dinner. It's later in the film that we're introduced to the fact that the meeting between Stephen and Martin wasn't by chance, and Martin's harboring sinister motives. This gradual unfolding of his motives forms the thrilling premise of the film. Lanthimos' absurdism often transgresses established genres, and can seem to be boring or meaningless. Characters in the film speak in a monotone, devoid of normal human emotions, but it's deliberate as it helps in creating the tense atmosphere where it's difficult to tell what the character actually feels. Often this gives the film different responses, from placing it as a tragedy to being seen as hilarious. The film was applauded for its cinematography and acting, being nominated for multiple awards in both categories. So yes, don't delve much into the undertones, but watch it for the meaningless thrill.
Tell me about what's life like.
It's pretty much common.
Marvelous conclusion. It can be seen from the list of films that we've covered today that A24 are associated with a wide and diverse range of films across all genres. But one common thing that can be found is that many of them either had a bad run at the box office or a mediocre box office collection, yet being critically acclaimed and later on making a cult following of its own fans. Nonetheless, many of the films fail to reach a large audience, and this is why we covered them today, because they deserve more exploration. Each exploration would help in opening up a new perspective and previously explored themes. We want you to write in the comments section what you felt was special about each of these movies and what are your A24 favorites. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.